In April 1994, Immaculée was a beautiful and young university student, and as she sat in her room in the university, she had no idea that in less than a week, her whole life would be turned upside down. Between the 7th of April and the 19th of July, 1994, exactly 103 days, over 1 million people were killed in Rwanda, East Africa. Most of these people belong to the Tutsi tribe. More than 6 people were murdered every minute of every hour within those 100 days. This massacre remains one of the fastest mass killings in recorded history. Today, we shall offer you a driver's seat perspective into how this occurred through one survivor's account of the events as she witnessed. We shall learn how the genocide started, what it cost her family, her friends, and her village mates, and how she managed to survive it all. Out of respect for the people involved, we have avoided any graphic images or videos, but have tried our very best to present the story as factual and accurate as possible. Immaculée came from a place called Mataba. This was a small village in Kibuye, on the western shore of Lake Kivu in Rwanda. Her parents were respected school teachers, and she was the only girl among her 3 brothers, namely Amabo, Damascene, and Vianney. To bring everything into perspective, let us understand how everything worked in Rwanda at this time. There were 2 main tribes in Rwanda, Hutu and Tutsi. Rwanda's population had long been divided, on paper, into a Hutu majority, a Tutsi minority, and a small Twa population. This distinction hardened under the Belgian colonial rule, which first favored the Tutsis for education and administration, then later on reversed the course and backed a Hutu-led revolt in 1959. This revolt led to the killing of over 100,000 people and triggered decades of periodic ethnic violence and the exile of the Tutsi tribesmen. Kibuye, Immaculée's home province, held a population of roughly 500,000 people, about 7% of the country, including one of the largest concentrations of Tutsi families anywhere in Rwanda. This fact would matter enormously in what would follow soon. It all started with the assassination of the Rwandan politician and military dictator President Juvenal Habyarimana on 6th April 1994. But before this date, through the early 1990s, a civil war simmered openly between the Hutu-led government and the Rwandan Patriotic Front, a rebel force largely made up of Tutsi exiles. In August 1993, the 2 sides signed the Arusha Accords, a peace agreement meant to end the war and share power. You should know that this is a very simplified and diluted version of how the war started. If you want to go deeper, we shall leave links in the comment section and description so that you can immerse yourself further into this history. Let's get back to the story. A United Nations force, UNAMIR, was deployed to oversee the transition, commanded by Canadian General Romeo Dallaire. From research and intelligence, Dallaire could see that the country was heading into a terrible civil war, but his warnings went largely unheeded. In January 1994, he cabled the UN headquarters in New York about weapons caches and militia training being organized for a mass-killing campaign against Tutsis. He asked for authority to seize the weapons, but he was refused. Meanwhile, a private radio station, RTLM, had started filling the airwaves for months with dehumanizing propaganda, branding the Tutsis as cockroaches who needed to be exterminated and naming individuals and neighborhoods as targets. Immaculée describes hearing this propaganda as it drifted through her dormitory window in her final year of university and assuming it was noise no one would bother acting on. On the night of April 6, 1994, the plane-carrying President Juvenal Habyarimana was shot down approaching Kigali, the capital city of Rwanda. Within hours, roadblocks went up across the capital. The then Prime Minister, Agathe Uwilingiyimana, was also murdered the next morning, along with the 10 Belgian peacekeepers guarding her. These Belgian nationals were killed deliberately to force Belgium and the wider UN mission to withdraw from the country. It worked because the Security Council cut UNAMIR's strength within weeks, just as the killing was accelerating nationwide. And this was the last block that had prevented an all-out war. Now let us zone back on Mataba village, where Immaculée came from. What took hours to reach Kigali took only days to reach Mataba. Militia groups, commonly referred to as the Interahamwe, set up roadblocks on every road in and out of the village. They checked each person's identity cards that, since the Belgian colonial era, had listed each person's ethnicity. Tutsi families' homes were marked, looted, and burned. Suddenly, neighbors who had shared meals for years turned on each other within a week. The killing in Rwanda was low-tech and close-range by design. The primary weapon nationwide was the machete, an ordinary farm tool already in nearly every household, supplemented by clubs studded with nails and firearms and grenades supplied to organized militia. Local officials frequently herded Tutsi families into churches, schools, and stadiums under the pretext of safety, then killed them there in a single coordinated attack. This was a pattern repeated at sites across the country, including in Kibuye itself. Being a woman, Immaculée's father decided to send her to shelter with their pastor, a Hutu tribesman called Murinzi, believing, as many did in the first days, that the violence would pass quickly. It didn't, and as the killings spread, the pastor hid her and 7 other Tutsi women inside a small private bathroom in his house, behind a wardrobe pushed against the door. The room measured roughly 3 feet by 4. 8 women stood, sat, and slept there in shifts, in near total silence, for 91 days. A few weeks into the genocide, Pastor Murinzi, the Hutu family friend sheltering Immaculée, turned on the radio, and the country's new president came on, congratulating what he called the hard-working Hutus of Kibuye for outperforming every other province and urging them, in essence, to finish the job. From early April until early July 1994, armed men who knew the pastor's family by name searched the property inside and outside, sometimes more than once, but they never found the women. Immaculée described those months as less a physical ordeal than a war against her own fear and rage. She could sometimes hear, through the wall, the voices of men she had known her whole life describing what they had done to families nearby that same day, and tears would just streak down her eyes. She weighed roughly 115 pounds when she entered that bathroom. She weighed around 65 pounds when she came out in less than 3 months. When Immaculée finally left the pastor's house in July 1994, she learned piece by piece what the 100 days had done to her family. Her mother, Rose, was among the first people in the village to be killed in the second week of the genocide. She had gone into hiding nearby, but ran into the road after hearing screaming from what she feared was one of her sons. The killers recognized her. A neighbor she turned to for help refused to shelter her and told the killers to take her away, rather than risk violence on her own property. She was killed with a machete at the roadside. A few of the surviving villagers, before mass burial would soon become impossible, managed to bury her body quickly. Her father, Leonard, was shot roughly a week later on the steps of the local government office in Kibuye town, where he had gone to ask officials to send food to thousands of refugees sheltering and starving at the town stadium. Her youngest brother, Vianney, was among those refugees. He was killed at that same stadium along with a close friend, and, by her account, thousands of others in a single coordinated massacre. The attackers opened fire with machine guns before finishing the killing with grenades. Her brother Damascene evaded capture the longest. A Hutu friend hid him for over 3 weeks, at real risk to his own family. He was discovered while trying to cross Lake Kivu to safety in what was then called Zaire. He was captured, beaten, and killed by a mob. Witnesses later told Immaculée that he refused, to his last breath, to give up her hiding place, and that a local pastor who joined the mob urged the killers on. Of her extended family, Only her brother Immaculée, who was studying abroad at that time, survived. She also lost her grandparents and at least 7 uncles. Her family's losses were not unusual for Kibuye or for Rwanda. Genocide researchers estimate that about 500,000 women were raped over the same 100 days in a campaign of sexual violence organized and encouraged by local leaders alongside the killing. UNICEF estimates the genocide left roughly 95,000 children orphaned nationwide. The genocide ended on July 19, 1994, when the Rwandan Patriotic Front, led by Paul Kagame, still the country's president today, completed its takeover of the country and halted the killing by force. An estimated 1 to 2 million people, many of them ordinary Hutu civilians, along with organizers and perpetrators of the genocide, fled across the border into Zaire in the weeks that followed, believing that the new regime would retaliate and kill them as well. This mass displacement would destabilize the region for years afterward. In the years that followed, Immaculée made a choice that startled people close to her. She sought out and forgave one of the men involved in murdering her family. She has said that forgiveness, not forgetting, but refusing to let hatred define the rest of her life, was what allowed her to keep living. She eventually moved to the United States, married, and had 2 children. She worked for a time at the United Nations in New York and became a U.S. citizen in 2013. She has spent the 2 decades since publishing her account and speaking publicly about it through her 2006 memoir, Left to Tell. She later published books and started a foundation supporting children orphaned by the genocide. 32 years later, Rwanda has spent more than 3 decades trying to answer the question Immaculée had to answer alone in that bathroom. How do you live beside the people who did this, or their children, without either forgetting or being consumed by it? The country prosecuted more than 1 million genocide-related cases through community courts called Gacaca between 2005 and 2012. It built memorials at Kigali, Nyamata, and Bisesero, now recognized as UNESCO World Heritage Sites, so the scale of what happened could not be quietly erased. The Kigali Genocide Memorial alone holds the remains of more than 250,000 victims. Immaculée Ilibagiza survived by staying silent in a 3-by-4-foot room for 91 days. She has spent every year since refusing to stay silent about what happened there. You can read all about this, and much more we have not covered in this video in her book called Left to Tell. If you want to see more survival videos like this, do not forget to hit the subscribe button and see you on the next one.